Hey, sports parents. If we haven't met, my name is Jonathan Carone. We hadn't planned on doing any bonus episodes this summer, but when you get an email saying, would you like to interview NBA Hall of Famer Ray Allen? You say yes and decide to put out a bonus episode. So today we're joined by Ray Allen and ESPN Wide World of Sports General Manager Leroy Arrington. Ray's down at the Worldwide Leader in Sports for an AAU tournament for his son. If you don't know what the Wide World of Sports is, it's essentially youth sports mecca. Along with professional level stadiums, it has 4 professional sized baseball fields, 6 fields used for softball and youth baseball, 10 tennis courts, a track and field complex, and an athletic center that can host 6 basketball courts, 12 volleyball courts, or 2 roller hockey rinks. And that's not even all of it. There's a ton of space there. It's over 250 acres. In total, the complex features more than 30 outdoor fields and several indoor venues. If you want to know more about the wide world of sports, you can visit espnwwos.com. In today's episode, we talk with Ray about why the process matters more than the results, how kids need to learn from failure, and we also get an inside look from Leroy about what it takes to make great experiences at these giant tournaments and what he sees throughout the year from the families who walk away from youth sports stronger compared to those who walk away burned out or fractured. Before we get to that conversation, if you like the show today, we're going to ask you to rate us and review us wherever you're listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, writing up a small review would be a huge help. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Most of all, if this episode helps you in any way, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend. With all that out of the way, here's my conversation with Ray Allen and Leroy Arrington. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate being here.
Before we get to your day jobs and your expertise and all of those things, my favorite question on this show is the first one because we get to meet Dad. So before we get to the other stuff, can you tell us a little bit about your kids, what they play, and what it's like being dad to them?
Yeah, so I have two young kids. My son plays basketball, so the fact that I'm here with Ray Allen is, for him is going to be the best treat ever when I tell him. So I intentionally did not tell him yet because of that. But and then my daughter, she plays soccer, a little bit of volleyball, right? And I think for me, just watching them grow, watching them learn, and seeing them become, I guess, I don't want to say young adults is the best way I can describe it, right? You see your child as a baby, then they become a toddler, then they move on, and now they're, young adolescents, right? They're not preteens. Well, my son's almost a preteen, right? But seeing them grow, for me, that's just the passion. That's just inspiring for me and motivating for me to do better and be better every day with them.
And I have 5. My oldest, she's 32. She played volleyball, and she played basketball growing up. She played volleyball at Quinnipiac University. And then I have a 20-year-old. He plays basketball at Emerson, the college in Boston. I have an 18-year-old who's graduating from high school, and he's going to prep school at the Hotchkiss School in Connecticut. And then I have a 15-year-old exceptional athlete. He played every sport. Is in band. He does everything, and he has aspirations to play basketball in college. And then I have a 13-year-old. Both the 2 younger are here playing this week here in Orlando. My 13-year-old, he wants to play ball in college as well. And between the 5 kids, super competitive. They love to play board games. They love to challenge each other and all the things that they do. They just enjoy the aspect of camaraderie in the house. And whenever there's a ball, that they play cornhole, they play ping pong, and so they have the mindset. They just love competing, and that's it makes the household so interesting because there's always, between me and their mom, we have to mediate a lot. We just had to mediate over a game of Monopoly the other day because there was a couple discrepancies. But I love it because they're engaged and they want to get after it.
I was out in the driveway this morning with my 8-year-old playing 2-square. So it's always something around here. One of the big things that I talk about on this platform a ton, it's one of the primary principles, is that the primary goal of youth sports is not to win an individual game. It is to develop our kids into adults who know the value of hard work, of being a good teammate, overcoming hard things, and just going after the things they want in life, whether it's sports or life in general. And I'm always amazed at the pushback I get from that. There's a lot of Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last in the comment sections of stuff. But Ray, you're a process guy and you've reached the highest levels possible of your sport. Can you explain to parents why the process is so much more important than the results, especially at these young ages?
Well, I won 2 NBA championships. I remember in Miami in 2013. By the time we walk out of the building, we went to a club, like we celebrated, but it wasn't a huge celebration. I was up at 8 the next day, and I went to the dentist. And I walk into the dentist's office, and I had something that was bothering me in my tooth for a couple of weeks. And he sees me walk in. The whole city watched what happened. They celebrated, and they looked at me, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" What you learn when you win is it doesn't change you. Winning a championship didn't make me a better person. It didn't give me anything that I didn't already have. What makes you a champion is throughout the process of getting up in the morning, performing, practicing at your inconvenience, doing it when other people didn't want to do it. That's what makes you incredible. When it's raining, when it's cold, when you're sick, that's what makes you great. And that's the process that you have to go through. You can't just pick and choose when you want to do your job. Just like most regular people that do their jobs, you have to go to work every single day. In sports, it's so physical that you have to be able to compete every single day and bring that energy and that enthusiasm. And more importantly, you can't do it to have to worry about what the outcomes may be. You have to do it knowing that there's going to be an outcome. The outcome is going to determine how you worked at it. And that's why when you practice, you leave no stone unturned. I prided myself on going to work every day and trying to work every angle of the court because I never knew when I was going to be in a situation that it was going to have my back up against the wall I was going to have to work my way out of. And so just to be able to be counted on by your teammates. I ran into a fan once, and they were talking about a specific game, and I was on the road, and they said the game was tied, and there was a couple seconds left, and I went to the free throw line. They got up and they walked out. And I was like, but you didn't want to see what happened? He was like, no, because I already knew you weren't going to miss your free throws. Like, I've seen it time and time again. And what they were speaking to was my ability to do what it is that I'm supposed to do. That's my job over and over again. And that's what greatness ultimately is the ability to do your job over and over and over again, regardless of whether it's sport or just, the business world. Like, you just show up every single day. You become an employee that they cannot dispense with, because you make so many things happen in work because you've done such an incredible job. So that's the win. It's not about a trophy. We get so caught in the trophies and winning, but at the end of the day, I would rather children lose, because now they want to have the real conversations. Now they want to sit back and say, Dad, how come Coach didn't put me in? I was like, because your free throws are terrible. You're shooting, yeah. You're shooting 55% from the free throw line. I wouldn't put you in the game either. I said, so we got to work on your free throws. And I got to put you under stress to shoot free throws so you can get comfortable. You put you in the game, you couldn't play because the other team was pressing and you can't handle the basketball. So all those things are great points that when you're honest with your kids, that when you struggle, we can have these conversations. But I always lead with the most important word that we can tell our kids is yet. There's this kid down the street, he's incredible. You're not there yet, meaning you're going to get there. We didn't win yet, meaning we will win, but we got to focus on this process.
That's incredible. And it actually leads me into the thing I wanted to ask you about next, because I've heard interviews with you before talking about failure and how failure has impacted your journey and how important it is. And I had a situation last fall with my daughter's soccer team. She's 9 and plays recreation soccer. So like lowest of low levels and like third and fourth grade. And her team had a game where they played like absolute dog doo-doo. And it was obvious they weren't going to win the game. It was their first and only loss of the season. And one of the moms said something on the sideline about how she was bummed because she was hoping they go undefeated. And as a mom, you want what's best for your kid. You want that joy. But I told her it was good for the girls to lose, especially because they didn't play well, so they could learn from it. But I'm just a dude. As a Hall of Famer, can you tell us the importance of those failure moments in the learning process to get to where you want to go?
In 2008, Eastern Conference Finals, we're playing the Detroit Pistons. We lose game 1 in Boston. And now we had just been taken to the brink by Atlanta and Cleveland. And we were feeling, we were battle tested, but we were like encouraged, and we lose that first game. And it was the last second that, I think we fouled Chauncey Billups. He goes to the free throw line. He makes a couple free throws. We lose the game. My memory's not great, but it was to something to that extent. And we were all so much more focused because we lost. We knew what our work was really cut out for us. And that's when the magic happens, when you do have to struggle, because now you pay attention. There are multiple times, because I see it now from afar, when teams lose, you're like, sometimes it just kind of straightens you up and you have to pay attention when you lose. And now you have to kind of go over, whatever protocols that you have, because sometimes things slip and you win. You brush things under the rug and you win. And then when you get beat by 20, well, you had so much slippage there that ended up rearing its head at the wrong time, and now it slapped you in the face, and now you have to address those issues. So going undefeated for anybody is great, and it's a lot of times it's a record. I watched UConn women go 35-0 when I was in college. But UConn women were incredible. The way they worked, the way they pushed, they played, just as hard as us. They trained just like we did. But when you do lose a game, it's always a reminder that you have more work to do and you can't get complacent, because every game you have to show up. And remember, I don't have to be, if I'm playing, like I had a friend of mine that played tennis, and he was ranked somewhere in the top 15 in the world. And he was facing the number 1 player in the world, and he thought, I just can't beat him. And I said, no, we're not asking you to be better than him. All you got to do is beat him that day. And that's sports. You may not be a better golfer than Tiger Woods, but you can have a better round than him on that Sunday. We've all seen his highlights. It just, great players, greatness, great teams, they don't always win. They lose. If you look at the NBA and you look at some of the better teams, the teams that are now in the playoffs, look at the team they lost to. I'm guaranteeing you they lost to some teams that didn't play in the playoffs, because sometimes you go into that situation thinking the game is automatically won already. But the respect that we have to show each other and the teams and the players is that these teams come to win just the same. And so when you do lose a game, it's an opportunity just to sit with your team and to speak about it, to continue to talk about what we need to work on and how we need to continue to grow. And when your girls lost that game, that is just a teaching moment for the coach and everybody to say, this is why you stay focused. This is why you don't lose. Because if you were undefeated up to that point, everybody was feeling good about themselves and you thought nobody could beat you. And it's just humbling. And it just goes to show you we're not invincible. Nobody is in sports. We're on this trajectory upward, and then you go bang, you hit it, and then it's called peaks and valleys. So when you get to a peak, you can be doing so many amazing things, but if you're not making good decisions, then you're going to hit that valley. And you can be in the valley and making great decisions and stay in the valley, but you could be on the ascent upward. And so how do we maintain the peaks? Because we will hit the valleys. And when you hit those valleys, just continue to make good decisions, and then you rise. But you'll be up here, and then one decision, bad game, and it feels like you're way down here, but you're actually not. You're just right on that mountain. And so what kids and what we need to always learn is, for the most part, we're always on the side of a mountain. You know, we're either going up or going down. Because when you win, you're up there, but then you come back down. You know, so just get used to kind of digging your boots in and kind of figure out a way to hold on, because that's what sports is like. That's what life is like.
Leroy, you get to manage the youth sports mecca. So you see people who lose, you see people who win, you see everything that Ray just talked about. I'm sure you have stories of. Can you share with us some of the beautiful side of it, the parents who get what he's saying, and or the coaches, of the things you've seen after a game loss in a tournament, whatever the sport is? Can you share some of those things that you've seen that just have stuck with you, like that parent gets it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, to your point, we have tons of experiences here in sports environment here, and we'll do cheer. And for the teams that come here for some of our cheer events, so we just had a summit event, and it's the Summit Championships. So those teams compete year-round to get to the championship summit. And there was this incident. It was actually was a couple of weeks ago. That's when the championship was. And this team, they had, prepared, they did well, and they progressed through the levels here to the finals. But they didn't progress, and they lost, right? And they're in the back, and they're crying, and their coach is trying to console them and tell them that they did a great job. They worked really hard, and they needed to be there. And then they kind of walk away, and they separate. But the parent of one of the girls pulled her aside and had a real moment with her about telling her that you're not a failure. You did not fail, and told her all the good things she had done to get to that point, and how this is just a bump along the road, and that she loved her and that she believed in her and she'll be fine. And you could see the moment when that resonated with that girl, that young girl, and I was like, wow, like that's a good parent. That's a parent that understands the value of encouragement, understands the value of what a loss can bring, right? Because these teams are at the top of their echelon when they come to compete, and it's hard for them when they feel like they failed. Right, and that parent, I will tell you, in that moment really got it right, and you could see the difference on the face of that child afterwards. Because a lot of people think that they'll come out here, if they lose, they'll go to a park, and it's not always the case. Some of these athletes, they take it really, really tough, and depending on how the parent responds, a lot of times it can make or break them.
Ray, as a coach, as a player, as a dad, like how do you handle those situations on the personal level with the kid that they're upset? Like the kids you're around are probably the best of the best at their level, at their age group, and they're not used to failing. So how do you connect with them on that emotional level in the way that Leroy was just talking about?
Well, it's super important not to be over emotional. I'm not up in the stands yelling, screaming. With our teams in particular, a lot of times I'll be sitting on the bench with the kids, helping the coach as an assistant coach, and just trying to encourage them and help the coach, if he needs substitutions, trying to pay attention to trends with the kids. With my children after games, I always try to put the ball in their court and ask them how they thought they played, regardless of whether it was a win or loss. I'll say, so tell me about the game. What did you think? And then they'll start saying, well, I did this, I did that, and then I'll let them take ownership of it and not let it be about what I think, because I want to hear their thoughts, because they have to take ownership and they have to start to grow and start to learn how to process this sport, being great, learning how to think about the things they need to work on. Then I'll say, yeah, you miss a couple of free throws there. We got to make sure that we work on our free throws, because that free throw is going to always keep you in the game in the fourth quarter. Or I'll say, yeah, one of the kids, did you see the kid that one time he stole the ball from you? You got to make sure you protect the ball. Just give them little pointers. But what I don't want to do is be emotional, be angry with the result, because no matter what, we're going to talk the same. Because even we've come here for 4 years, I think now, and we've won at our age groups, several times. And I always remind the kids, I said, you're going to be the last one here. Mostly everybody's gone, so it'll be just your parents in the stands, and we'll win, and you'll get a ribbon, and then we'll go home. I said, so don't be driven by the rewards or the successes, because you do it for what it means to you. And a lot of times it's those small little battles, like knowing the guy on the other side couldn't guard you because you made shots, or that he was afraid to guard you because you were quicker than him. Those little things are what encourage the kids to keep going, and just pointing it out as parents. It's important for us to be very reflective just of the game itself, and what and how we've seen our kids, just as information. But oftentimes, and here's another point that's super important, I see a lot of parents get mad at the opposition. And we do have to do a better job of respecting the competition, because if the competition is not good and nasty sometimes and super competitive, then how do we teach our kids? That competition is what gets us to say we got to work harder, or we got to focus on this, because did you see what that kid did, and you see how that's our barometer. We can't forget to continue to pay attention to that and pay respect to it.
You mentioned that you're sitting on the bench as an assistant coach, and you're obviously the most qualified person there because of the basketball. So many parents feel like if they know something the coach doesn't, it's their job to step in the game, or like, I got to coach them because the other coach isn't doing it. You're qualified more than anyone else in the gym. How do you stuff that down sometimes to let the coach and then use those moments in other times so that you can respect the person who stepped up to coach while also teaching your kid what they need to know?
Well, I was my kid's head coach for 3 years. I had both my boys, and I know those parents, all too well. And what I would do is I would offer them to come and help, because I was a volunteer, and the response was always I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I had things that I had to turn down, but spending time with my kids was something that I'll never regret. And so I always, I had a conversation, and I hated it. It was a flex on one parent, and I walked up to him after a game. His son didn't play a lot, and he said to me, I seen him, and he was kind of like at the elevator. We were going up to the hotel, so he wanted. I can tell he wanted some confrontation. And so I walked up to him and I said, everything's good? And he goes, no, everything's not good. And I said, what's going on? I know what it was, but I wanted to hear him say it. He said, my son, I just don't understand why he didn't play. And I proceeded. I said, well, let me ask you a question. You played college, you played pro? And he goes, no, I played in high school. I was like, oh, okay. So that was my first data point with him, because he didn't play at another level. So now I just wanted him to know, you don't have the expertise of an experience of this game. And what I'm looking at, you're often looking at your children, your son's minutes. I'm looking at the team's productivity as a whole. And I said, your son, when I brought him in the game, finally, I don't know him. This is my first time seeing him. When I brought him in the game, he got off the bench like he was already upset. He felt like he should have been in earlier. He didn't run the floor. He didn't play defense. All he wanted to do is shoot. I said, and we had to win this game on Friday in order to play again on Sunday, and this was a live period in front of coaches. And I said, all my kids wanted to play in college. So I wasn't going to ruin this experience for them. I wanted to win for them so they can get more exposure. And if your son doesn't come in here with enthusiasm and energy, then he's going to miss the boat on that. But you have to encourage him. And so then I told him about the story about the boy and the butterfly. And the story about the boy and the butterfly, and a lot of people know this, the boy walks into the woods and he sees the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, and he was like, oh, look, the butterfly. And he starts opening up the cocoon to help the butterfly out. And the butterfly falls to the ground and it dies. And the reason it died is because the butterfly uses the cocoon to strengthen his wings so it can, in order for it to fly. So that adversity that the butterfly has to go through at that time in its early life is what allows it to be strong. And a lot of times that's what parents are doing to their kids, is they're opening up that cocoon for them so they don't have to kind of strengthen their arms to fly for the rest of their life. That's what happens in the AAU sports. That's what happens in the middle school and in the high school, because they're trying to take the adversity away from their kid. And as a coach, for me, I'm trying to put adversity in front of them, because that's how you learn. It's just like when you go to take your driver's test. You know, if you're driving in the parking lot, they put cones in front of you. You know, you got to learn how to swerve around the cones, and then three-point park and, you know, parallel park. That's adversity and obstacles that are presented in our way to see how we can navigate around them. That's what we want as coaches for our kids, but the parents want them to have an open parking lot. You're not going to run into anything. We're just going to, and what does that do for them when they hit the street and they drive and they see all these obstacles? And that's the thing that parents have to remember, is that our lessons come in adversity. They come in obstacle. They come in struggle. So now we can see how they think, how their minds work. And now we have to reprogram them to be good in adverse situations.
That's great. We got time for like two more questions. And Leroy, while I have you here, I want to have a conversation about this like in depth with you at some point, because it's so fascinating to me. But what makes you guys different with the Wide World of Sports is the experience as a whole. So I think what parents often don't realize is they're just there for their kid, and they've got their schedule and when they play, when they practice. But from your job, like, what goes into making a great experience for everyone at these tournaments and these competitions, as opposed to just having a good tournament? Like, how do you guys make the experience so great as a whole?
Yeah, that's a very interesting dilemma we have, right? But a great question. For us, we're trying to manage all aspects of it, right? Because you think of the parent, the singular parent, and their athlete and what they want to accomplish. But then for us, we also have, depending on the team or the venue or the event, we're managing the client, and then we're also trying to manage the spectators as well, and everybody's expectation of that, right? Because you're going to be compared to other venues. And for us, what we tend to break it down to its simplest form, which is, what are we trying to achieve here, right? And we're trying to achieve convenience and an experience that's above all else, right? So when people think of Walt Disney World, they think of a magical experience. Well, when you think of ESPN Wide World of Sports, we want to give you that same customer experience. We want to make sure that we're giving you that same value for what you're experiencing here, because we understand that it's an emotional connection. I have children, right? So I'm a dad, and it's an emotional connection when your child is winning. It's an emotional connection when your child is losing. It's an emotional connection if you can't get to your child's game on time. So for us, it's important that we're managing all those aspects, and we're looking at creating ways that you have instant access to where you need to be, and that it's as clear as possible and as seamless as possible, while also sprinkling in a lot of Disney magic. When you think about our venue, the capacity, it's over 250 acres. Well, how do we ensure that? Well, when you walk around here, you'll see our cast members. We intentionally have them in Mickey mitts. We'll have pop-up times where we can have character sightings to be seen. We'll have a DJ, which is unique, right? You go to our parks, you don't see a DJ, right, playing background music. But we look for these little opportunities that make it different and unique, so that the experience here is different than anywhere else. And so, one, that you'll feel that. Two, you're playing on I'd say a large scale, because, like, again, we have amateur sports out here, but we have a lot of professional level teams that come out here to practice and participate, especially when they come to town. So our facility is pretty, is bar none one of the highest facilities that exist out there. And because of that, we want to make sure that the kids also get that experience. So there are times that we'll put them on the big screen to make this experience feel even major league for them, to take a pun from baseball when we have a stadium here. But we'll do those little small tweaks that you're so used to from Walt Disney World, and we'll apply those here at ESPN Wide World of Sports.
That's awesome. I would love to talk to you more about that on a future episode. So I'll reach out to you about that, because I think when parents understand what goes into these tournaments, they have a little bit more grace for the tournament directors, as opposed to just sitting there being about themselves. But last question for you. We end every episode off the same way. There are so many parents on this journey who don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to support their kid because their kid has this passion, and they're holding on as tight as they can for the ride. So for those parents, Leroy, we'll start with you, then Ray will end with you. What would your encouragement be to them this summer as they are going to practice, going to tournaments, going to games, supporting their kids? What encouragement would you leave with them?
What I would tell them is to know that it's okay that you don't know everything, and to know that it's okay to support your child no matter they win or lose. And your encouragement means the most. It's important for them to not always assess their child's skills to another child's skills, because you don't know what that child did to get there, right? You don't know their behaviors. You don't know their practice schedule. You don't know their regimen, but you know your child. So focus holistically on improving your child day in and day out, and do not look, it's kind of like when they say looking at the Joneses, right? Do not compare your child, and also don't let them do that, because there's always going to be someone that's better than you that exists out in the world. And doing that doesn't grant you anything. It doesn't help you move further, move along. It actually kind of plateaus a child. So I've seen that happen. And I'd say that's where the parents can just take the time to be in the space in the moment. Because the other piece of this, and I've seen this happen, we see this happen at our venues because of our amateur sports, at some point the child will age out, and they may go on to the next level or they may not. So take the time to enjoy it while they're in this level.
Asking questions of coaches. There's a difference between being involved and being over-involved. The saying is, we don't want helicopter parents, we want submarine parents. Submarine parents, they're under locked and loaded, ready to come to the surface if necessary, but you can't see them. For those parents, we would rather them, put together a support group in your community of other parents and communicate and do things together, so you can ask each other questions and support each other and have engagements for the kids, and just provide the kids what they need so they can go out and perform. If you need to ask the coach questions, designate a parent that can be a team parent, so it doesn't over-inundate the coach. If you don't know what it is that you think the kids should be doing or what you should be doing, lean in on the other parents that have done it before. Because there's no perfect science. Every AAU system is different. Some parents are traveling further distances. So it's important to just ask the questions. And remember, when your child doesn't play, doesn't mean that the coach doesn't like your child. It just means that your child may not be good enough, and you should let your child handle that circumstance or that situation. Like, let's get in, let's get working, because I never found a coach. I never had a coach that disliked the hardest working player on his or her team. They're always going to put the kid in a game that could shoot, make free throws, and set screens and take charges and all that stuff. And so creating that child to be favorable from that standpoint, and just making sure that you stay involved but stay hands off, and that's super important. And because coaches, I see too many coaches that have to deal with parents where they make substitution choices based on what parents may or may not think, and that's not the right way to run a program. Because now that coach ends up not being the right person, because now he's making decisions based on if you're appeasing people who have no matter and didn't go to practice. So give the coach the power to be able to make their own decisions and run the team. If you trust the coach, we trust the coach. And that's super important for all parents.
Guys, this has been a gift. Thank you so much for joining me today. That's it for today's episode. As a reminder, if you want to know more about ESPN's Wide World of Sports, you can get all the details at espnwwos.com. If you like the show today and want more of it when season 2 kicks off this fall, I'm going to invite you to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it would be a huge help for you to write up a small review. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button as well. If this episode has helped you in any way, the best way you can help us grow this show and this message is sharing this episode with a friend. Most of all, I hope you enjoy your summer. Enjoy the time with your kids. Go out, grab some ice cream, play out in the driveway as much as you possibly can. More than anything else, just enjoy your time with your kids. Have a great one, everybody.